and we didn't figure this out until a little bit later too, is you can get those collapsible wagons. And those are great, like, especially when you're in between the stroller and when you don't necessarily need a stroller, but you still have like all the car seat and all the gear. Cause like we used to pile everything on top of the stroller. And
Yes.
so with the collapsible wagon, if you're trying to get from your car to the airport, you can just like pile everything into the wagon and pull it along, then check your stuff. And then once you get in the airport, you can put the kids in the wagon, get them through the airport, and then they'll let you check the wagon as like a stroller at the gate.
Why didn't we do this call before I went to Amsterdam?
Yeah. It makes all the difference. We have a picture of all of the stuff that we just like had at one trip, and I was like, this is ridiculous.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we took the stroller and everything, and the kids were like, we're not getting in that thing. So we're basically pushing the stroller. It's not even like good enough for storage. And it's just I almost left it at the airport.
Yeah. So the wagon is the hack.
Be free. Yeah. That's a good trip. Yeah. Good tip.
Cool. Well, but I don't want to get too far into. Oh, let me tweet about this because we'll have more people show up. But I mean, well, I'll say this again. Congrats on the new gig.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of said it when I started, and I think this all the time. It's just like, you know how there's certain jobs where you feel like is a perfect fit for you. I think this is the one. I've been in the Laravel ecosystem for, I say 10 years, but then I look at the clock and the calendar and it's been like 12, 13 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
What version was that?
3.
That's impressive.
Way back. Yeah. All right, let me get I'm
going to do this. My dog's going to bother us if I don't kick him out. Okay. All things Laravel. Okay. Sweet.
Yeah, and Chris, I don't know if you're into it, but I would love to talk a little bit about fitness today as well. I know you're into it.
I'm into it. I love it. Specifically, how to get out of it and try to get back into it, because that's where I'm currently at.
Yeah. I remember after we had our second child, that was like the most unfit we ever got. And then we're back on the train, home gym people.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that helps a lot. It's funny, like the more I've gotten older, I've just realized the same things that I could do in my 20s. Like I could lift a lot of weight, like just pushing squats, deadlifts, all that good stuff. And I'm doing it now, and it's just not really like, I don't have the willpower for it nowadays. So I'm like, what's the next move? Like what will be interesting for 35-year-old, 36-year-old Chris? I don't know.
I feel that. Are you a runner?
Not at all. Not even close. Sprinter back in the day. Yeah.
I used to do halves before I had children.
Oh, nice.
And when they say like running is all mental, that's like so totally true. And I ran a half maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it had been 10 years and 3 kids later. And just what you're talking about, the mental willpower was like just not there. And I was like, it's okay. I'm going to stop and walk. It'll be fine.
Yeah. There's just, I don't know, the expectation you have to change for yourself. Like I can't lift the things I used to lift, but we've gotten into an indoor climbing gym, and that's become my cardio now. And I am really enjoying it. And I think that's the trick, right? Like finding things that are fun. I have no like squash buddies around me though. So that's a problem. I like squash.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Brad, are you good? And we can go say our
I'm good. Let's get her going.
Intro. Okay. Let me get this queued up. I can never find the track. There it is. And just for everybody, just a side note, the compressed intro is in between the rock music and the giant laugh. So, okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Compressed FM, a podcast all about web design and development with a little bit of zest. In today's episode, we have our good friend, Chris Sev. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. This is my second time on Compressed, and I feel like, I don't know. I love you guys. You guys are great.
That's very kind. We love you too.
Web development and design, who would have guessed? Well, we can do them both, even add a little zest. So turn up the volume, get ready for the best. Let's get it started in this episode of Compressed.
Hello, my name is Amy Dutton. I am a lead maintainer on the Redwood JS core team.
Hey, y'all. My name is Brad Garapi, and I'm a senior front-end developer at Stripe.
As I mentioned, we have Chris on. It is Chris's second time. Got a different job this time.
Different job this time. I have joined Laravel. I just hit 1 month, so that's exciting. And I feel like I joined right at the, the high trajectory time. We had Laracon EU, and now we have this big cloud launch happening next week. So it's a fun time. Yeah.
Baptized by fire.
Yeah.
Thrown into the deep end. Yeah. So, I mean, why don't we start there? What big things were announced at Laracon EU?
Yeah. So Laracon EU, we are basically, we had a lot of like fun stuff to announce. And really what we announced is kind of telling people, look, we've been working on Laravel Cloud for a while now. It's kind of our big bet on like hosting Laravel apps, specifically like managed hosting. This is something that the Laravel developer community hasn't like seen really. Very much like the Netlify, Vercel, what they did for the JavaScript side of things. This is what we're pushing for on the PHP side. And yeah, we announced that it is going to be live and launched on February 24th. So a few days now. And yeah, on top of that, you got Laravel 12 that week. You got the Laravel starter kits, which are really, really cool. You can like use one of the starter kits and immediately you have authentication. You have like logins, registration, all built in, which is really fun. We have the Laravel VS Code extension, which is kind of like very much awaited from me, especially. And a new Laravel.com design. Am I missing anything? I feel like the list is huge.
And I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I know with the Laravel ecosystem, you also have things like Livewire. I think Livewire counts as this, and Alpine, which are like first-party integrations, but they're not supported by Laravel directly. There's another creator that has come up with these pieces.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's what's cool about the Laravel ecosystem is that Laravel itself kind of has this ethos of, look, we want to give you the most productive way to ship applications. And what's fun is as Taylor has built the framework and all people have come and joined and added onto the framework, myself included, I've joined the community like 10, 12 years ago, right? There are people that come and build things on top of Laravel. So yeah, Caleb Porzio has built Livewire and Alpine, and Livewire is really, really cool. It's kind of like, if you know Rails's Hotwire, it's kind of a way to get the backend like Laravel or Rails type framework to talk to a modern front end and kind of like do that real-time connection, everything you'd expect from like what web apps, how they work today.
Yeah, and I know that Laravel's like pretty flexible with how you choose to hook up your front end to your back end. Do you have like a preference on which one of these different methods you use to do that?
Yeah, there's Livewire is one of our big ways to do the front end. There's also Inertia, which you can basically, Inertia is the glue between Laravel and a JavaScript framework. So React, Vue, or Svelte. And basically how Inertia works is it kind of like reads from the backend and inserts props into your front end. So it's really, really cool way to connect there. I actually have a couple production side projects, and one of them is Livewire and one of them is Inertia with React. And each has its benefits. I think Livewire is really cool because you can build things like incredibly fast and you're just building in like a Laravel way. And then Inertia is really cool because now you have the entire strength of the React ecosystem. You have like all the crazy charting libraries. You can go generate things with AI because AI is really really good trained on React type stuff. So yeah, I think Laravel just says, look, this is kind of the main framework. We can connect to whatever front end. I know a lot of people even doing like Laravel backend and a Next.js front end, a Laravel API Next front end, and they do it that way. But yeah, flexible is the word.
Right.
Very cool. So what I was going to say though is I think Caleb just announced a new landing page for Flutter, which is his Livewire component library. So
Yes.
he originally that library at Laracon US, and then I don't know if he spoke at the Laracon EU or not, but he did announce a new landing page.
Yes. Yeah. Flux is the
Flux. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I think that everything that like Shadcn did for React, Flux is doing for like the Livewire side of things, and it's beautiful. I think everything's fantastic. I'm not terrible at any Tailwind and designing and stuff like that, but to have these built components and in any ecosystem just helps with maintainability for sure.
Sure. Or even just like prototyping, being able to validate an idea quickly. And then from there, you can always iterate and customize pieces. Yeah, we got.
Yeah.
Thanks for the correction in the chat, Flux. Flutter is Google's thing, which I think is RIP.
Is it now?
Maybe there were rumors of it. Maybe it's still being supported.
I heard they were like forking
questions. Yeah, that's probably close.
Yeah.
So,
Kaneko, what's up? Good to see you.
Yeah, so going back to Laravel Cloud, I'm actually interested in hearing more about what the service has to offer. I'm coming from like a fairly standoffish point of view on Laravel. I've never used it. And so I want to understand, like, is this the kind of flow where you hook it up to your GitHub account and then boom, your PHP is, deployed to some server, or does it have some notion of like serverless and scaling? What's that kind of story?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because when I started in web development, you kind of just started on PHP and you kind of just started working with PHP. You did some fun stuff. Then you kind of jumped into WordPress. You figured out you didn't like WordPress sometimes. And then you kind of like just figured it out, right? And I think that was the days of you have a server, you create your files, you like FTP them up, FTP if you're just, feeling wild. And that changed, right? Like JavaScript has become the norm. I think there's a lot of strength in Angular back then React, then Vue, and that whole ecosystem has grown and Node has grown. And it's easy now to develop and deploy those applications. And that's kind of why you see like beginners going to that route. And I think that's great. On the Laravel side of things, on the PHP side of things, we've always still had to set up a server, Nginx, like all the Apache stuff, right? Like install your extensions and then hook up your database, do your networking. And it's just not what people are used to these days as far as like beginners learning how to code and stuff like that. So yes, what Laravel Cloud is kind of an answer to saying, what would a modern day deployment look like for Laravel? And we've, looked at the whole ecosystem. So connect your GitHub, deploy from GitHub, and it deploys within 60 seconds is kind of the goal target, which is wild for a Laravel app. For context, Laravel Forge is a way to provision servers on DigitalOcean, on AWS, and I've had all my apps there. But each deployment is probably like, 5 minutes for me. And then like setting up the server was about 45 minutes. And that's me like knowing what I'm doing at this point. So Laravel Cloud, connect your GitHub, deploy, one click, add database, one click, add caching, one click, add your queue jobs, which is what like I think is kind of a gateway into like why you would join Laravel is there's all these like little things underneath that help hold up your application. Pretty much like deploy an app in less than 5 minutes all together, all set up and custom domain.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there an integration there with Herd?
No integration with Herd specifically. Herd, you can like just build your app locally, push to GitHub, and then like connect from your GitHub.
Yeah. So for anybody that's not familiar with Herd, I've found it to be the fastest way to work with PHP locally. Like it's amazing. You can just install the Herd app and then you get access to a database. And what's cool too is I was working on a Laravel app and I needed HTTPS. And if you're doing stuff in the JavaScript world, you have to do a little hacky hack in order to get that to work, to be able to test certain features that need HTTPS. And Laravel is just like flip a switch and you have HTTPS running locally. Crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. Like once you've been developing in this kind of stuff for a long time, you kind of forget what was a headache at some point. And yeah, you mentioning that is a headache for sure.
Yeah, that's funny. Just thinking about all the headaches over the years and how much the tooling has evolved, even just recently, to be able to help developers move a lot faster and get up and running. So,
yeah, it's exciting times for sure. Even exciting times with AI. Honestly, I think it's like such a gateway into helping people get into coding.
yeah.
I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
or
let's do it.
whatever,
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it. Do you use anything on the daily AI wise?
Yeah. So my previous company, I was at SourceGraph, which is an AI coding company, and a lot of things, a lot of AI things, just testing all the things out. And I've been through like the gamut of using AI in coding and trying to find like how far is too far, or where does it break? What's like the right amount? Yeah. What do you all use?
I have become a hardcore Cursor user, but I saw your tweet that I think you posted yesterday that I guess you still call them tweets, that I hardcore agree with, where you were saying that you love the UI from Windsurf and everything that they offer within the agent mode, but a lot of times it's just easier to use the chat feature within Cursor and then just apply the things that they're saying one by one. Which I agree. I've kind of landed in that same bucket.
Yeah. I really like Windsurf's UI and their agent. I think their whole flow with their agent is much better flow than the Cursor's agent flow, because there's like, and I think Cursor is going to clean it up, because there's chat, then there's the Composer way, but Composer has a normal way and Composer has an agent way. And just picking and choosing which way to go is already like a mental overhead. Windsurf is fantastic. I think once the models catch up, like I think a lot of people will be more inclined to just say, look, here's 5 files. Here's my task. Go edit all 5 at the same time. But yeah, right now there's a lot of things that it miss.
Well, and I think that's kind of why I landed at Cursor with their chat view, was because I was in Windsurf and I asked it, hey, will you create this client library for me? And I created a PRD, which is project requirements document, and said, like, these are all the things that I need. Go ahead and build it. And it was building all this stuff. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I asked it to create tests for it. And then it couldn't pass its own tests and it didn't know like how to fix them. And because it had created so many files, I was like, I have no idea. Like, I can code. I don't even know where it's breaking down because it just
what did you
created a bunch
do?
of stuff. Exactly. So at least with Cursor, I'm like walking it through step by step. I can review the code. And there's even then been several times where I've caught Cursor and I said, no, this is not what I'm trying to do. Check this out. Look at this documentation. And of course it's like, oh, you're right. Good catch.
Yeah.
But you kind of
always so eager to be corrected. Yeah. I even went and spent the $500 on Devon for a month.
Did you?
And yeah, it's definitely like at the junior level where you kind of have to like have very specific requirements. You kind of have to tag which files you want it to work in. And even then you have to be more of the manager and just like double check everything it did. So at that point, it is a little bit too much work. But it was interesting to see its flow, because it would like write the test, it would run the test and see the failure and then just keep going. And all of a sudden I've wasted like a ton of credits just watching it do this flow by itself. But yeah, I'm bullish on it all. It just, we talk about AI. I think the first version of GPT-3, which was like the first public version, was what, like 2022 November. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
Come a
crazy
long
how far it's
way.
come. Yeah. So Brad is a Copilot fan, which I think
Interesting.
it'll get there. I think it'll get there.
Yeah, my take is like, given that VS Code and GitHub are both backed by Microsoft, which is like where most people store their code and the editor that most people use, VS Code will wind up ending up doing things that the best way, or they'll pick and choose the best from everybody they see. And just because they have Microsoft behind it, I think it'll win in the long run. And so I dig the inline chats. I like the chat window. Their whole editor experience, it needs work, I would say. But I think that VS Code is mostly just out of my way a lot when it comes to AI. And I think that's what I like the most. It'll complete my thoughts and give me little spots to ask questions without like trying to take over my editor and be like, you should do this. And really, I want it to be like an extension of my fingertips and not like I have to think in AI to accomplish this task.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And like, it's Microsoft's playbook. Like,
yeah,
we have time, we have money,
Mm-hmm.
and you've already seen it. Like, they have their agent mode now. They have, for a long time, one of their everybody else's biggest differentiators was we can help you choose any model. And here comes GitHub with like, here's Claude, here's whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, on the GitHub on the website, they have workspaces, which is essentially Devin, and it'll only get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
now,
have you used Cursor?
I've used Cursor and I found it to be overwhelming. Like that was my first thought, was just like, there's too much UI getting jammed down my throat right out of the gate. And it makes me be like, it's too many changes. And now my job is to review code, and I'd rather have my job be to write code.
Yeah.
But Amy helped me one day. I was struggling with like this weird test situation. I was like trying to mock out this thing in Remix, and Amy threw AI at it, and I wound up solving it on my own. And I was comparing the two pull requests, and it was really interesting the way AI handled the problem, where it would look at every individual error message and whether or not that was the culprit of like the root cause. AI would do some code change to address it. So by the end of it, there was a lot of kind of interesting extraneous code and stuff in the pull request. And it was cool to see like how it was thinking. Like you understood how it got there, but like human reasoning would have went a different way.
Yeah.
Have you done anything with R1?
Just like some basic questions, nothing on code or anything.
Okay.
Everyone loves it for its like reasoning thing.
Right.
And I kind of like how it shows you the reasoning, and that's fun for like 5 chats for me. And then I was like, don't make me think, just give me the final thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh man, are my skills atrophying? Am I the problem?
No. Well, I remember the first episode that you were on with us. I feel like AI was a lot newer then, and you were doing some really cutting edge stuff with video tap and talking about prompt engineering. And one of the things that you had mentioned in that episode was asking AI to share its reasoning with you, and then it would give you a better result. But on the software side, you had to cut all that out afterwards so that it wasn't including all that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about these like reasoning models now. It kind of removes that step for you. And it does it multiple times. Like if I did it in a prompt and said, look, whatever you're thinking, all of your logic, put it in thinking XML tags, open and close thinking, and then I'll remove it myself. The cool thing about these models now is they can do multi-step reasoning, which is cool. And yeah, they've helped video tap out. Like we don't have to do much. You just switch out a new model. Like O3 Mini is fantastic at writing blog posts these days. And yeah, I don't know.
That's one of those things that I haven't come around to, is like understanding which model is best for which application. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I like to, like everybody does the benchmarks, and that helps I think in my experience, just jumping into 2 different tools, like one, Cursor or Windsurf, just picking a model and doing a task and then doing it in the other one, same task, right? And you kind of can tell maybe after 3 chats of which one is the right move. 3.5 Sonnet has been fantastic still as far as like speed to intelligence. And then I also jump into, I'm a heavy user of Perplexity, and they give you all the models as well. And that's where I try most of the models. But the cool thing about Perplexity is they kind of only give you 5 models, 5 of the latest. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of like lean to the OpenAI and Claude type models. Yeah, and
I know.
Vercel SDK, yeah.
Yeah, I know Vercel came out with this little tool that like puts 2 models side by side. And while this is an interesting tool, I wonder if it has the ability to add like context and all this other stuff, because I think that's where you'll really see a model go, one way or the other with enough provided context, and you're getting 2 different answers. Let's say one is favoring a more recent version of a framework or can pick up better on the context you're providing. It's kind of like crucial when you're evaluating these things.
Yeah. And what I'm learning is it's getting close to like where humans are. Like a lot of people are intelligent, right? A lot of people know the same knowledge at this point. It's formatting. Like I use the same question. I talked to Grok 3 just came out, Twitter's newest one. It's supposed to be super, super smart. And it just formats poorly. It doesn't have headers, like all that stuff. And at this point, the information is whatever to me. It's like, can I digest it fast? And now we're getting to the point where like a lot of my experience having a guest author program and having a blog, it's how do you format and how does it read?
Yeah. Yeah.
The read piece is huge, especially in some of the stuff that I'm doing, whether I'm having it help with social media posts or titles or things like that. And some of the stuff still just sounds so AI-ish. Claude has done a lot better, but it's still like,
Yeah.
screams, AI, that they have this pattern. Like even, this is kind of fun. I'll pull this up really quick. For today's recording, I asked it, hey, I'm going to talk to Chris Sev. These are some of the topics we'll probably talk about. Do you have 10 suggestions for different titles? And some of them were Inside Laravel's Evolution was one of them. And I was like, yeah, that sounds very, very AI-ish.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's like, I don't know, if you're trying to write for an email or anything like that, now that like Gemini's in Gmail and it helps you write everywhere, shorter and more humor is is the human way I'm seeing. Other than that, if it's just facts and like I can go have AI shorten that even further for me. But entertainment is more of a factor these days, I think.
Which AI is very good at puns. That's my favorite use case when I'm writing.
Yeah, the good one-liner.
Yeah, for sure. Much better than I am. So one of my favorite use cases lately with AI has been trying to pick up new coding techniques and things like that. So Laravel was actually the first framework that I'm going to say learned. I did have experience with Laravel back probably 10 years ago when you did. I was coming out of WordPress and trying to do something more complicated. But just recently, I'm like, okay, everybody's talking about trying to find the JavaScript framework that matches up with Laravel. And so then I'm like, well, what does Laravel offer? Like, why is everybody still trying to basically find that perfect framework when Laravel already offers those features? And so trying to learn that with AI has been really interesting because then I can ask it to explain code and things like that. So as someone moving, say, from JavaScript to Laravel, do you have any thoughts on that transition or just the best way to have some of those mental model shifts?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I've kind of joined as DevRel, one of the things we want to do is get that kind of beginner level learning, just kind of revamp it. We have the Laravel Bootcamp, which is really good, but I think that you have to have some kind of knowledge about where things live in the Laravel ecosystem. It's an MVC type framework, model view controller, and maybe not a lot of people have dealt with that sort of framework before. There's a lot of concepts of like database migrations, and that's the cool thing about a batteries included framework like Laravel. You get so many cool things out of the box, but your education area is greater, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit more investment there. Whereas the JavaScript side, you can kind of like learn, let's say Next.js, where it's kind of like your views, your routing, your rendering. And then once you're ready, you tack on like a Prisma, and then you learn databases, right? So there's those tiers. And yeah, like, so figuring out what that education looks like on the Laravel side is very interesting. The ecosystem is so giant nowadays that organization is always going to be the thing that you have to focus on. But yeah, like moving into Laravel these days, if you just ask AI, I would say like, what are the 5 core things I should know about Laravel as a framework, right? And it should get you through the model view controller. It should get you through how you can grab stuff from a database, throw it into a controller, render it on a view. And the cool thing about like having AI at your side is that as you're building, it can just like generate the next file for you, or recommend the next migration, recommend the model, and recommend the view, and then how to like get that back into the database. How to pretty much just flow through your CRUD, right? And
I love it when things flow through my CRUD.
Flow through the CRUD. I'm going to use that somewhere.
Sounds like a t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
But that you're right. That's the benefit of kind of having like one framework own so much of the process, is that AI and tooling can really help you every step of the way.
Yeah. And the cool thing about AI, and it's been trained on a lot of the code that's in public repos and all that stuff, right? And it's really good at React. It's really good at like JavaScript type stuff. But the cool thing about it is Laravel is 12, 13 years old now. It's really good at Laravel too.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting because it should definitely be a tool to be leveraged for learning at this point.
What does the VS Code extension do for Laravel? Does it help with some of this generation, snippets, auto completion, or is it more like a view into your deployments, dev servers, database, things like that?
Yeah, actually, it's closer to just finding out how to navigate your code. Like you see something, you can auto-complete it as far as like your config files, your environment variables, your views. And then if you want to click into something, it just drops you into that next file. So it's more of a traditional IDE helper type thing than here's your deployments, or here's like AI generations. But
Gotcha. More like
it's actually something that's very much like needed in the Laravel side of things, because I think there's like 5 different extensions you could tack together to build this, and it wasn't 100%. This is a really, really good step forward for VS Code. And then on the PHP Storm, like JetBrains side of things, they have Laravel IDEA, and that's just been solid for a while now.
Gotcha. Can you like relate this to like a language server? Like the TypeScript language server allows for all the click-throughs and the completions and things like that. Is that what this is doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good comparison. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You were talking about all these different add-on pieces. I think one of the things I like though about the Laravel add-ons is they have a driver model, so that if you do have a situation where you want to swap something out, it's super easy because you can just swap it out in the driver config. And in some cases, your code doesn't even have to change. So that does make it really nice.
Yeah. Building video tap, I've done a lot with video work, and like I tried to build like an AI tool. I know more about video than I ever wanted to know. And it's like not fun. I wanted to do AI. But yeah, just trying to figure out where to store videos, like who does it better. There's AWS S3, there's Cloudflare R2, there's a couple different things. And yeah, to move all the files and uploads from one to the other was just a simple config file, actually 2 letters, right? Like R2 and change it to S3, and you've moved everything over. And you can do that for more than that. Like I did it for mail. I forget who I was using. I am now using Resend. That was a simple config file and add an API key kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned VideoTap. So that was a company that you ran that did some like AI video stuff. I'm curious to know about your transition from being like a business owner into, you know, an employee. Do you feel the same amount of freedom? What are the trade-offs? And, you know, you're a director, so that's got to come with some different responsibilities and things.
Yeah, I don't think that transition was that hard for me. I've always kind of had a day job and had side projects. And so that balance has always been okay for me. I actually don't spend too much time on these projects. I like to, you know, still spend as much time with the family as possible, especially as they're younger. And it's been a boon to have AI at your side because you can just 10x a lot of the things in 1 hour, right? The biggest transition for me has been more of that director level type thing. I've traditionally just been IC, let me get in the code, let me focus on that. So the communication that needs to happen at the director level, like I think there's a lot more. I used to think in kind of days and days ahead. You kind of have to move that into like a level above and go like weeks ahead and then like maybe a month or 2 months ahead, right? And then you also have the just well-being of the people that you work with and just focusing on making sure they allot time for themselves, that they have all the resources they need. So it's definitely been my biggest transition. And like I'm a month in, I'm still learning that whole process, but then still trying to find time to like get into the weeds and build and record videos. Yeah, ask me in like 3 months how I'm doing. I should be a lot more calm and adjusted by then.
Yeah. What does onboarding at a new company at a director level look like?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Laravel is, I wouldn't call it like any normal company because last June there were like 6 employees, 10 employees. And it's February. We just hit 50. I was number 47. So those kinds of things. The cool thing about Laravel employees is that Laravel has been around so long that there's already a lot of love for Laravel and a lot of like champions for Laravel in the ecosystem. And one that makes hiring really easy. Like I was already a big fan of Laravel. I already call it like my perfect job for me. And one that helps with like the recruiting, right? You just kind of pull from the pool of people that already love Laravel. And two, a lot of these people are like high agency, low ego. So they just go and like find out where they build their own onboarding basically. And yeah, at this level of a company, you wouldn't expect it to have the onboarding of like, I came from DigitalOcean. There was like 2 weeks of onboarding there, right? And videos made and all that. So I'm enjoying the smaller size. Yeah.
Man, I would have thought that Laravel was bigger than that, especially for the length of time that the project has been alive. So like these 50 folks, what are their main focuses?
Yeah, there's so Laravel had their Series A funding back in June, July of last year, and I think that really unlocked Laravel as a community and like as a company what it can do. So there are more open source engineers that got onboarded. Laravel has strong roots in open source, so we never want to like leave that, right? So we have Inertia.js, like Inertia 2.0 came out after. We have people dedicated for like the Laravel VS Code extension, which never had a chance to exist, right? So a lot of engineers, Laravel Cloud is a big like thing to build. So a lot of infrastructure. We also have Laravel Nightwatch coming, which is kind of like an error tracking whole platform monitoring system for Laravel. So that required its own team. And we have a DevRel team like forming. We have a marketing team forming, all these good things. Yeah. And I think we want to keep accelerating this for at least the next few months. So we'll see where we're at.
What's really cool is just the way that Taylor whether it's intentional or not, but just the way he set it up, it really validated the idea. I don't think most apps necessarily need 10 years to be validated, but I mean, he really did wait as long as possible to hire to hire people. We had Josh Sear on.
Yep.
And he was talking about how just, Taylor had bigger dreams than capacity. And so how just hiring a team and going after funding really unlocked a lot of opportunity for Laravel.
Yeah. Taylor did an interview maybe a month ago that I really enjoyed. He basically said, like, look, a lot of people probably say, oh, you're selling out, you're taking funding. What's going to happen to Laravel? Taylor, and I love the way he thinks. It's very much like pragmatic, like what is best for Laravel itself, what is best for the ecosystem, and what is best for the people that kind of jumped on board the train, because there's a responsibility to like a lot of this community, right? He said, I would see it as selling out if I didn't take the funding, because at this point in Laravel, it's gotten really large, but to do a Laravel Cloud or a Laravel Nightwatch, it requires like a bigger team, a bigger bet. So if he didn't do it, he saw it as like, oh, I could just like ride this out at this level and kind of, see where it goes. It would probably like stay around here, maybe drop, as things do over time. But so this is him like saying, I want to reaffirm the work that's been done over the last 12 years and double down on it.
Well, and it's also just a way of giving back to the contributors if he's able to offer your biggest contributors jobs so that they can focus on something that they already love doing.
Yeah. No, and it's cool because the first employee of Laravel was 8 years ago, Mohammed, and still here, right? Like there's some people here that are 7 years, and the team was, around that 6, 8 range. I got to find out that number, but back in June of last year, it's kind of a testament to Laravel itself of just, they still want to be here. And like I was able to join, really, really fun stuff.
Now, I did want to ask a question because I know it was like big Twitter news when you converted your wife, Cap, to Laravel. What was was it, they say, the straw that broke the camel's back, that she was like, okay, like I'm a JavaScript person, I will look at Laravel?
Yeah.
Or is it just like over time?
What was it? I think, she's definitely a JavaScript girl. She works at Vercel, right? So I think there's this thing in the ecosystem where it's like, look, if you're on the PHP Laravel side, you're not on the JavaScript Next.js side. And there's this choose sides sort of thing. And I think, I don't know, it's been around for forever, and you pick any two technologies, there's camps, right? I don't know. I've never been of that mindset. Like it's never been beneficial to me in building anything I want to build. I think for her, she went through the boot camp, the Laravel boot camp. And I think it also helped that she applied to speak at Laracon US and was able to speak. She did a fantastic job there. And then she spoke at Laracon EU 2 weeks ago, did a fantastic job there. And yeah, she's still firmly a JavaScript girl, but I think she sees like a lot of the cool things that the Laravel ecosystem has. And yeah, maybe I wore her down and just kept poking.
Well, it's not far off from what Aaron Francis said when we had him on. He was like, why do you have to choose? You can still use JavaScript with Laravel. We can all be friends here, which I thought was a really good insight as well.
Yeah. And he's like put his money where his mouth is. He's released his package Fusion that combines Laravel and JavaScript.
Yeah. I still need to check that out. That looked really interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. I actually still also need to download it and play.
Cool. Brad,
what's that?
I was going to ask what else you had.
Yeah, well, okay. I know from social media that both you and Cap are super into fitness, and that's something that we were talking about before the show went live. And so I'd love to get into that topic a little bit. Maybe talk about like where you're at in your training nowadays.
Yeah. We kind of talked about it a little bit. I am in my training is do whatever it takes to not be at the level that of like sloth that I am currently at. That's where I'm at, is do whatever it takes to just move. And I used to, like, you asked me 6 months ago, I would have said, like, do whatever it takes to get a really heavy squat back, and I had like this whole training regimen, didn't follow through. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to find ways to, with my limited time with the 2 new kids, the job, the side projects, to just say, how can this be something I look forward to instead of, oh, great, what does my app say I need to do today? And yeah, I've found indoor rock climbing to be really helpful. I went this morning at 6 a.m. I try to do like a 20-minute worth of climb, and then they have a gym attached to it. So I'll go do a little thing that my app tells me to do. And it's essentially lowering the barriers needed, because to like where my barrier was before, the amount of willpower to get to that, to like get into the gym and do it, too high, especially with where I'm at right now.
Especially with the powerlifting stuff, you have to go in with a certain mindset, a certain intensity, a certain focus. I did the running thing for a while after the powerlifting stuff, and that was fun, but it took way too much time with a family to do. And now I'm strongly considering moving into some kind of like kettlebell based dynamic type training. I feel like that could be fun, a little bit of like HIIT style, and still pretty like heavy if you wanted to go that way.
Yeah. And especially as I'm seeing I've gotten older, I think I have like a little bit more back pain than I'm used to. Flexibility is everything.
Dude, every workout starts with a stretching session, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I did what I do in my 20s, just skip the stretching.
Yeah.
Doesn't work out.
Yeah.
What
about oh, go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to say, what you're talking about is completely in line with anything that you'll read about habits, is just trying to lower that barrier of entry so that, you're not having to overcome a bunch of willpower. I've even heard of people just saying, you know what, the goal this week, I mean, obviously not long term, but the goal this week is just to put on workout clothes. And once you get in the habit of that, and I know half the time, even when I just put on workout clothes, I'm like, well, I'm already dressed for it. Might as well do it.
Yeah.
But it's like making the one step thing, the habit, that can then lead to the next habit and the next habit. So it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminds me of like, the good brain is conditioned by its environment, but the great brain will position themselves into the correct environment first. Right.
It's like how Atomic Habits says you have to identify yourself as the thing that you want to be. So it doesn't matter the environment that you're in. If you are a fit person or a bodybuilder or a runner or whatever, you're going to do that because that's who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's a disconnect with a lot of these things, because I've read Atomic Habits probably 5 times at this point.
Yeah.
I've never gotten through it all, but
it's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I get to like maybe the 60% mark every time. I should just start at 60 at this point.
His James Clear's newsletter is really good too. It's very digestible. He just does like 3 quotes that he has, 2 quotes I think that he found, and then a question.
Nice.
So a lot of times it's like easy to get through, but sometimes I just have newsletters build up in my inbox of, I'll come back and read it, and then it just takes up space.
Just piles up.
Actually, it's easy to get through, and his quotes are usually right on point. Like, oh yeah, that's a good thing to think about.
I liked the app, the Atomic Habits app, when it first came out.
Oh yeah,
it's as far as habit tracking apps, it's not just like a check the box this day kind of thing. It very much has everything that he's talked about. Like when you go and track a habit, it's like, oh, you're one more step closer to being, or like, thank you for reinforcing you're a fit person type thing. Like it's very much that mindset. Performance was really slow, and that's why I had to like drop it. I just like you click check, and it was like 15 seconds until it logged you.
Should put on a Laravel backend.
That's what I'm saying. Laravel can do iOS apps now.
Oh wow, can it really?
As of like 2 weeks ago, Simon Hamp has released a thing where And it's been fun watching his transition and building it, where you can pretty much just package a Laravel app, drop it into like his thing, it packages it for the App Store. And I'm like, yeah, like how feasible is it? The file size of the app itself is like smaller than you would expect, smaller than the other JavaScript apps on his list, or I guess native normal apps, whatever they were. But yeah, exciting. We'll see where it goes.
That's awesome. Are you
Cool. Now you got me looking into this Atomic Habits app. Pretty cool. What do you use for like productivity stuff? How do you track your daily to-dos?
Oh man, I have gone through so much, and pen and paper, all the apps, time blocking with like that structured app, Amy's, not Amy, AMIE.so app. And I always come back to like, look, just throw it into a Notion doc and review it every night. Because if you could do all the apps, if you're not reviewing it, it doesn't matter. It's just a dump. Still trying to work on it.
Notion, I found I got really into like configuring Notion. And so I was like, I'm spending too much time on the system or on the system rather than in the system. So I stripped down and went to Apple reminders, and it's been the best for me.
Oh, nice.
Simple as can be.
Yeah. I had Bear for a sec. And in Notion, I just have a list that are like to-dos. There's no table. There's no nothing. You just have to be able to like move things around quickly, and you can't.
Yes.
It's all structured.
Move things around quickly, access from all devices. Yes. And I love yelling at Siri to like add things to the to-do list. That's like, you're thinking about something in the house, you just yell across the room or whatever. That to me is your capture mechanism. It has to be everywhere.
Yeah, this is 100% where I yell. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to keep going on this. You have the Ultra. How do you like it in comparison?
In comparison, like I honestly don't do anything ultra. Like I'm not running more than half a mile. I'm not doing anything on top of any skiing and mountains and underwater. But I don't know. I like it. I like the look of it. Honestly, with this band, it's like the trail band. It is the most comfortable any Apple Watch has been for me. Like I don't even feel it sometimes. I don't know why it's this band specifically. I've tried the other Ultra bands. They're clunky. Yeah, I don't know. If I ever get into ultra running or something, I'll come back on the show as a different person.
Is the battery life as good as they say it is? Because mine's starting to disappoint me. That's what I'm looking at.
100%. I don't charge it for like 3 days at a, like go on a trip.
That's awesome.
Don't think about it. Yeah.
Mine's starting to die within a 45-minute run. And I'm like, okay, time to do something different. Yeah. But I'm like streaming podcasts and stuff, GPS, all that. So
yeah, that's interesting because I've had it for a year and change now, and I forgot that was a problem with like the normal.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. And the size isn't a factor. That's great to hear.
I don't think so. Yeah,
Cool.
Brad,
pick some plugs.
I was gonna say you're gonna be making some purchases after this episode.
We have a black one now.
That one looks so sick. And I've been looking into Yeti backpacks and GoPros because we have a trip to New York City coming up, and I'm telling myself you don't need it, but just giving me stuff to research.
Yeah. Well, if you want to add another one, I really want one of the gimbals, like the DJI phone gimbals.
Yes.
I have one of those.
I like because I know it's like really good. Yeah, exactly. I know it's really good like physically, but I've heard the software is fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I like it for portability. Like if I'm traveling, it's so light and compact, and just stick it in my backpack. So, but I mean, DJI is great too. That's behind me. It's a Mosa Air, and it's just so heavy and fat that I just usually don't use it. I'd rather stick my phone on the DJI gimbal versus trying to rig up my DSLR.
Sweet. All right. I have a purchase to go make now.
Well, with that, we will get into the next section of the show, which is our picks and plugs, where we pick something that we like and we plug something generally that we've worked on or built. So, does anybody want to go with picks? We've already had a few picks. I think of stuff during the week and then I should like write it down and I don't.
Yeah, picks. And not like Laravel
It can
Cloud
be
type pick.
so that would be a perfect plug. Or if you even want to plug your social media stuff too.
Yeah. Okay, so but this is picks and plugs
So
related.
that can be anything. It can be
Okay.
a TV show. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean TV shows. I'll go TV shows.
Okay.
I have it's been extremely frustrating to find a TV show. Like Cap and I, we go sit down at the end of the day. We're like, maybe there's a TV to watch. There's like nothing good to watch lately. But Severance is back, and
we just started that
Invincible.
last night.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's
what was
good.
the second one?
Invincible. We're
Okay.
enjoying. Yeah. Like Silo season 2. I'm sorry if anybody out there liked it a lot. Wasn't for us.
I haven't seen that one. I picked this a few weeks ago. We watched The Night Agent on Netflix. That's really good.
Okay.
We got through the first season. Yeah, it's very good. And then your plug?
My plug. Yeah, Laravel Cloud. I think that's the plug. I think it'll be really interesting because Laravel Cloud kind of unlocks Laravel for a lot of people. And so if you haven't used Laravel Cloud or Laravel itself, I think this is like the best time to try. And we're also coming out with brand new starter kits. So my plug would be on Monday when we release everything, try out the new starter kits, like clone it, play around with it. There's one for Laravel plus React, there's one for Laravel plus Vue, and there's another one for Laravel plus Livewire. And yeah, out of the box, you get registration, authentication, you get a dashboard, like logged in, authenticated dashboard section, all that stuff to handle like database connections and all that good stuff. And then try deploying your starter kit to Laravel Cloud. And I don't know, just see how you like it, see what you think about like the Laravel ecosystem, where it's going. Cause this is truly, Taylor called it the biggest day in Laravel history. I'll add to that. This is the biggest week in Laravel history. There's 5 launches on Monday. There's a new stream or event happening every day of the week throughout the week. And yeah, this is really exciting stuff. So DM me and tell me your thoughts. Like, I love all feedback, especially if you like have never used Laravel Cloud. If you've never used Laravel itself, I like need that feedback because we're doing a lot of new education for that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. You have a busy week ahead of you.
I have a busy week ahead of me. Yeah. The next 3 days, blazing.
Awesome. So I'm going to pick a game that we just added to our collection. It's called Really Loud Librarians. It's made by the same people that made Exploding Kittens, if you're a fan of that card game. So it's kind of like a catchphrase taboo type game. So you're trying to, or categories where you're trying to name things that start with certain letters. So it's one that my kids have enjoyed playing. So anyways, we've had a lot of fun with it. So it's called Really Loud Librarians.
Nice.
And then I'm going to double down. Well, yeah, that's good for a pick. And then for a plug, I'm going to plug my newsletter. It's the Broken Comb newsletter, brokencomb.dev. And it's this idea that as you expand your skill set, as you go wide in dev, you also can go deep. And so you kind of create this broken comb metaphor for your skill level. So the newsletter tries to go wide and deep on different topics. So check it out, brokencomb.dev.
Nice. Hey, Braden. Good to see you.
Let's see, for me. Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, dude.
Yeah, I just went down this rabbit hole. I think it was last year of all the Exploding Kittens games.
Oh, yeah.
They have so many games.
I know.
And the art is amazing.
Oh, yeah, every time.
Really funny.
Yeah. The other one that we've enjoyed is the poetry for Neanderthals.
Oh,
that's another one. My kids love that one.
If we're ever in the same spot, I crush at that game. I'm just throwing it out
terrible
there.
at it.
I am the best at that game. I am the best caveman.
My husband's really good at it too. I'm like, how do you? I like to say I'm just too complex. I can't think in one syllable words.
Oh yeah, I could just turn it off and just me no now no.
Bro, what you got?
Okay, let's see. I don't really have like a physical thing to pick this week. We've been recording a lot, so it's a good problem to have. But I want to pick the React ATX meetup here in Austin. It's like a lot of the same people are going. Seeing more familiar faces. I'm getting a group to go together tomorrow night, so it's starting to feel like really good to go hang out and see the same people. Same thing for the Remix meetup, but specifically, I'm going to the React meetup tomorrow. I'll drop a link there if anybody's in Austin. Go check it out.
Awesome.
And then for my plug, I've been doing a lot of streaming lately on my Remix starter application. Been going through the process of rolling my own off, which Laravel would have made, completely pointless providing it out of the box. But I love like learning about that kind of stuff through and through myself. So you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@BradGarrowP. And I'll drop that in the link. I'll be live streaming probably tonight as well as tomorrow morning, making progress on that stuff.
Nice.
Sweet. Well, Chris, thanks again for joining us today. We appreciate it as always.
Yeah,
And,
thanks for having me.
That's all we got. Sweet. And I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thanks everybody for hanging out in the chat.
Thanks everybody.
Yeah.